Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Words of the Wise. I'm Jess, and I'm here today with Chief Hagglund of the West Brookfield PD in Massachusetts, over 25 years in law enforcement. Welcome to the show, Chief Hagglund.
Jess, thanks for having me. I'm really glad you guys found me.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking a little bit offline, and you said you had gotten into law enforcement at the age of 16 or public service.
Yeah, so I started off my career as a first responder. At the age of 16, I became a paid on-call volunteer firefighter for my home community, which was a great time. It was the first opportunity we had to give back to my community. And then at 18, I liked it so much, I became an EMT and a police dispatcher. And then after that, I worked on the island of Nantucket for a summer. And today, would you call it a community service officer? Back then, you called it a summer special, but basically, you were just helping the visitors and the residents move along the island. So that's kind of how I got my start. Started in the age of 16, a little older than that now, so about 31 years, almost 32 years in public service.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you've been a chief for now 3.5 years, a little over
Yeah, so
three
I
years.
was able to make the move from chief. I'll give you a little bit more about my background. I worked on the Cape, Cape Cod, as you guys would call it, but the Cape as we know it, in Provincetown for a few years. And then I bounced back and forth, and I was working in Metro Boston for 18 years, and I earned the rank of sergeant there. But I was looking for more, and I had some great mentors in my life. So this opportunity opened up in rural America, about a half hour west of where I currently reside. And I took that opportunity, and yeah, it's been great. It's been about 3.5 years. It's been a lot of learning experiences and a big learning curve to go from a sergeant to a chief position. But yeah, so I've been the chief for about 3.5 years now.
At what point did you learn it's not about having the answers, it's about understanding the people that you're leading?
Yeah, I think that's still ongoing. I think we continue to learn as we go to different classes. Um, one thing that we try to experience is not just giving the answers right away, and that works just as well in your home life as it does your work life. So just asking questions and having people try to solve their own problems. And I'll give you an example. In my home life, my son was struggling with trying to figure out if he wanted to join the military, if he wanted to go to college, or if he wanted to take a gap year. And I just asked probing questions. And at the end of the day, he figured it out in about 15 to 20 minutes of me just asking him questions that he wanted to join the Navy. So I thought that was a really great thing. We'll go to a leadership school to say, hey, ask probing questions. You're able to ask it to your own family members, which was really helpful to him. And then here, same thing. You want to help your employees try to find the right answers, because sometimes they're a little nervous that their answer might be the wrong answer, but it's never the wrong answer, right? Our employees are they have all the right answers. We just got to make sure that we get the best out of them.
I think that's really important to ask the questions because you can give them the answers of what you would do, but this isn't really about you. It's about what's best for them.
Right. And if you start giving the answers, you're going to inhibit their ability to talk. So they go, okay, that's what the chief wants, or that's what the leadership wants. So we're going to do that instead of getting the ideas that are probably going to be better than your ideas to begin with. So
Mm. And it's building collaboration amongst
yeah,
you and letting giving them a choice.
100%. It creates some ownership, and they can run with it. So we had an officer that wanted to start a comfort dog program, and we gave the officer the tools to start the program. And we're a rural community. We're actually going through some difficult financial times currently. But that officer wrote the grant, or wrote a proposal, did all of the fundraising efforts, and was able to get a comfort dog. It's unfortunately the position right now is suspended, but as soon as we can bring it back, I'd love to bring it back. But that's something that officer really worked hard on and is really proud of. And that's not something that I had the bandwidth to do myself. And that's another thing. As a small town chief, or as a chief anywhere, you only have so much bandwidth. You only have so much time to discuss certain things. So empowering your people to be able to take opportunities and run with them is really important for the success of the officer, and for the success of your community, and of course your police department.
How has And you do currently have the comfort dog or not? Not at the moment. It's something maybe
Right
in.
now, the comfort dog, right now the comfort dog is we don't have the funding for it, so we've had to suspend the program temporarily. She still has a dog,
Yeah.
but we just don't have the funding to bring it back to the police department for now.
Yeah. How was that something that's like impacted the team? Like how has the dog how have you been able to share that with the team? Because I know I have my dog here at home and I mean, I'm biased, but I think that dogs are the best. And
Yeah, no, the team's been very understanding. What's been harder is, the people's the dog's life affected. The officer would go down to the senior center all the time and engage with the senior center folks there, and they really love our dog. But um, it's something that's just going to have to wait a little bit longer, and we'll see what we can do in the future.
yeah, definitely something you're working towards. And then what leadership lesson has had the greatest impact on you as a chief?
So one thing I learned right away about becoming a chief, and I wish we had these opportunities as lower ranking officers, is that the day I became a chief, people came out of the woodwork. Other chiefs, hey, good luck. If you need anything, call me. If you need this, call me. And having all of those people on speed dial to say, hey, this is an issue that I'm having. How did you deal with that? Whether it's be a disciplinary issue or a budgeting problem, all these other chiefs have gone through this. So having them just give their numbers and say, this is the way. This is the way we do it here. I once said, geez, where were you when I was a sergeant and a patrol officer? Because those mentoring programs are really important. And even in Massachusetts, over the past year, we just rolled out a new mentorship program. The Mass Chiefs of Police are putting together experienced chiefs with newer chiefs to keep that mentorship going. And I think that's been one of the biggest lessons is not just having people say, hey, call me if you need me, but when you actually do call, they answer the phone. And even retired chiefs, I called a retired chief for a project that we were having, and it was a cold call. I never, I probably came up on his phone as spam, but he answered the phone. I told him, what the problem was, and he said, "Okay, you got your notes ready, right? You got your pen ready. Let's go. This is how we're going to tackle this." And that's the other part. The biggest part of that was the we mentality and not the me or the I. When they say it's cold and windy at the top. That's one of the things. But when you have that we mentality and you have a lot of good people surrounding you, it's really helpful.
It's so important to have people cheering you on in your support system. You never get somewhere alone. It's having that team, like you said, having that team mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's probably been the best lesson, and I got to learn that fairly quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, we make references all of the time to sports teams. You may not get along every day on a day-to-day basis, but when you come together to play that game, you show up for each other.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is showing up every day, showing up for your family, showing up for your coworkers, showing up for your town, um, and just giving it your best. And some days your best is going to be different than other days. But if you're going to give it your best on a Monday may be different than your best on a Friday, depending on how it goes. But
Yeah.
always giving your best to the people around you, I think is really important. So.
How have you found now, like whether it was now or earlier in your career, shift work has impacted? You may not get a full night of sleep. Sleep is one of the biggest things that we talk about. And if you're not getting sleep, you may not show up your best self. So, how do you
Yeah,
manage that?
shift work and especially in a union environment, we don't have these rotating shifts. You have to earn the next shift down. So when I first got on the job, there was officers that, the hiring was stagnant. So there's officers that would be on midnight shift for 10, 12, 15 years at a time. But now there's been a huge turnover and officers aren't staying in the field as long as they were. They don't see this as a retirement job. They see this as a step on their journey. But the shift work, yeah, it's tough and it's challenging, and we try to encourage people to have that work-life balance. But it's hard when you have all these competing priorities and you're going against the grain, trying to stay awake all night and then taking a nap during the day. Or Massachusetts, a lot of the guys will work details, so you only have so much time off in between your work, your detail. to rest up before you get to come back to work again. So it's definitely a challenge for the officers, but we do encourage them to try to strike that right work-life balance.
Yeah. And you mentioned, people aren't staying in the job as long as they once were. What have you found successful for retention, if any?
So I actually read a CLIA article. And CLIA is a accreditation commission for a national accreditation commission. And the first part is recruitment. It's hiring hard to manage easy. It's trying to figure out who's your best fit for your community at that time. So you cast a wide net, and that could be, getting to the officers that are in, getting to the prospective officers that are in your high school, or even younger when, get them interested when they're in grammar school. Finding those people, and then as they go on, maybe having internship programs. We've had an internship program here in West Brookfield for several years. That's been pretty successful. And just finding those right people. And then the best recruiters for your department are your officers, hands down. They're the ones that say, hey, come on over here. In Massachusetts, we're doing a lot of lateral transfers. We don't send a lot of people to the police academy. So, hey, come on over here. The water's warm. It's great here. And when you hear that, there's definitely some departments that are doing a real good job at that recruiting and that recruiting piece, especially luring seasoned officers to their agencies. Your officers are the best recruiters, but then there's that retention piece. So once you get people in the door, you got to keep them in the door. And to keep them in the door, you need to have what they're looking for. So hopefully you're hiring hard to manage easy, but once you get them in the door, you got to figure out, hey, where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And then you got to ask them again, because those things are going to change. What they think they like at 23 years old isn't going to be something that they like at 30 years old. Or maybe it is. Maybe they'll just be a super expert in that. So finding the round peg for the round hole, and then having those opportunities. So some opportunities we have is a local drug and counter crimes task force. So for officers that want to do that. I'm also the control chief in charge of SEMLEC, which is the Central Mass Law Enforcement Council. And for the listeners out there, what that is it's a group of 77, 78 communities, cities, and towns that all pool resources together for different things, whether it be SWAT, drone, canine, and I'm in charge of crash reconstruction for those communities. So guarding their interest, engaging their interest in that. If there is a comfort dog program, empowering them to get to those positions, and empowering them to do, and giving them the right tools so that they can apply for grants or private donations. Giving them the tools to do that. That's important. You can't just say, hey, you can have this program and not give them any tools. So that's the retention piece. But the last piece of that, which I think people forget, is the promotion piece. Oh, and even part of the retention piece is having those soft skills, talking to your people, communicating with them constantly. And one of my mentors said, just don't say something to say it. You actually have to believe it. And if you say something just to say it, the your people are going to pick up on that. So you actually have to believe what you're saying. So I thought that was really poignant. I've tried to bring that to my leadership style. But the last piece of that was promotion. And you need to find ways to promote your people, whether that's vertically or laterally. You got to find ways to keep them interested throughout their career. And if those three things were a Venn diagram, like recruitment, retention, promotion, in the middle of that would be leadership. And the leadership is up and down the chain of command, getting good people to help you out, you helping the officers out, and having those leadership programs there that are extremely valuable to the whole program of recruitment, retention, and
I think
promotion.
that's great advice. Yeah, to be able to have all that support. And like you said, it may not just be promoting up. It can be something lateral just to change things up and give a variety, keep them interested and challenging themselves in different ways.
Yeah, one thing we haven't been able to do here because we're so small is somebody wants to be a detective. Well, you put them with detectives for a few weeks or a month and say, okay, is this something you really want? Or sergeants, people that want to be a sergeant. Hey, I want to be a sergeant. Great, that's awesome. You're going to go congratulations, you're going to be shadowing a sergeant for a few weeks or a month, and to see if you really like it. I've had times in my career where officers have been promoted to sergeant, and then getting into a month into position, they said, "Oh, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this anymore." So they went back to patrol. We could have avoided that in the first place. And then same thing with one of my best friends was promoted to detective, which is a lateral move from patrol to detective. 3 weeks in, same thing. So this isn't for me. And he tried to get that job for a long time. So having those opportunities for looking at the different job features, what you think it is compared to what it really is I think really important for just our officers.
That's really important. And I'm trying to think of an example of when, like, how often do you get that? A lot of times it's like, okay, like you think that you really want to do something, but you don't often get that chance to try it before jumping into it. And then you reach a point where you're like, oh no,
Yeah, a
now
hundred
what do
percent.
I do? Like, I thought that this was it. This was a thing that I wanted to do. And now
Yeah,
it's something else. Like, I'm just thinking, like, even for myself, I went to college for marketing. I really wanted to do sports marketing. I had the opportunity to do that. I worked in the golf industry, and about a year and a half into that, I was like, this is not exactly what I thought it was going to be. Now what do I do? And it
yeah,
all works out in the end. Here I am. I'm still in, wellness. I have the sports background, tactical athletes. But again, it sometimes it's not as easy as just being able to shadow. You get into like, okay, now what's next? How am I going to get there to what I'm supposed to be doing?
yeah, 100%. Especially with becoming a new chief, it it's definitely different than what you anticipate. You
Mm-hmm.
you can visualize what it's like to be a police chief, but until you actually sit in the seat and you're steering the ship, um, you can't appreciate the complexity of the position. It really is a complex position. I can tell you when I was a sergeant, I was always, oh yeah, that would be that job ain't that hard, but it's a hard
Mm-hmm.
position. Um, and it takes actually sitting to appreciate it. So I'll tell you what, that would have been nice to see from the other side first as well. So
What's something that most surprised you when you became chief?
just the complexity and multitude of different issues, whether, even in a small community. So I had the opportunity to be the interim town administrator for a few months while we were looking for a new town administrator. Our town administrator had retired, and the community was looking for somebody that could kind of just fill in. And Chief, can you do that? And I said, sure, no problem. I have a master's in public administration. This shouldn't be too hard, but it was really complex, really hard working with all the department heads. It gave me a new appreciation for all the different department heads and how hard that administrator's job is. You think the chief's job is hard. Try being a town administrator in a really small community where everybody's coming to you with all of their problems, and you don't have that support staff to, ferret all the problems out to you. You have to be the one that's answering all those questions. Yeah, you're ferreting some stuff out, but there's a lot more on the administrator, and I definitely appreciate the town administrator job a lot more now as well.
Yeah, it's definitely probably opened your eyes to some different things that you didn't see, in your previous role.
Yeah, 100%.
How do you balance agency growth with the available staffing and funding that you have? I know you mentioned earlier that finance has been more difficult recently.
Yeah, every department has a ceiling, and it was actually I saw this not too long ago. They did a experiment, it was a famous experiment. I can't remember what it was, but they would take these fleas and they let the fleas jump around, but then um, they put like a glass over it, and the fleas would hit the ceiling. And even when you took the glass off, they would never jump higher than what their ceiling was. So every agency has a perceived ceiling. I'm sure you can break through it, but smaller agencies do have a lower ceiling than these big, huge agencies. We have to be really careful in hiring because every team member is so important. So agency growth comes from number one, picking the right people and then finding the different positions for them. But we don't have these super specialties where, a big city will have you answer a phone, I mean, you answer the radio, you'll secure a scene, and then everybody else comes and takes care of that scene for you. Yeah, we have that with really serious scenes. We'll call in some of our state partners and regional resources. But here, the other part of that is the officer is answering everything. So they're answering the domestic at 2 a.m. and then following up on it. If there has to be a search warrant written, that they're doing that. So they get a lot of exposure to things that you wouldn't get in the bigger cities. But on the flip side of that, those super subspecialties, um, we don't have those. So everybody does have a ceiling.
What have you found for wellness? Have you been able to get creative to provide your officers with wellness resources?
Yeah, so when I first took this position, first of all, wellness in Massachusetts is a hot button topic, and it's only been a hot button topic, at least for the police officers on the police side for a few years. For our citizens that we protect, we've had co-response programs for a very long time in different areas of the state. But for our police officers, just getting resources to them and then get them to trust that that they can actually use them. So first thing that we did was we put magnets on the refrigerator and we would do check-ins. And I can tell you, one of my biggest disappointments in my career is there was a leader that I worked with, and he just seemed off that day. So I just checked in on him, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine." But you could tell that they weren't fine.
Hmm.
And then um, a few days later they made a pretty big mistake, and I always kind of kick myself saying, if I just pushed a little bit harder for somebody that was a supervisor to me, could it have made a difference, right? So that's kind of where I come from. Like, hey, not only do you got to open the door, but sometimes you got to check a couple, two, three times. You don't want to force wellness down anybody's at anybody, but you want to make sure that they have the resources and the comfort there for them. So we just started with putting magnets on the refrigerators, and then we have policy software, and we exploit that for other things. So we exploit it for training, and then we exploit it to give our officers resources, whether they're town services or services from private companies. We have a company that's not too far from us that specialize in first responder wellness. So to make sure that they have access to those resources, financial wellness programs, your regular mental health wellness programs. One thing that we haven't really been able to broach here yet is physical wellness programs. Love to get involved in that, but like I said, it's for us it's difficult. We don't have a gym in town, and that makes it a little bit more challenging. So we haven't found that opportunity for those physical wellness programs. So it started with magnets, continue with policy software, and then just opening the door when your officers are saying, hey, you're kind of picking up that vibe like something might not be right, and making them feel comfortable that they can talk to you. And when they do, you have to do what you say you're going to do, right? They have to trust you. And then the pinnacle of that is a few months ago, we had like a real tough day in our community. And at 5 o'clock that night, I was at my house, and one of my officers had called me to check up on me. Hey, Chief, are you okay? And I was like, wow, I really appreciate that. And I never thought you guys would call me, but to have the officers call you and say, hey, are you okay? I thought that was, full circle. That was
Yeah.
really a great moment.
So the magnets on that fridge, what do those say or how does that work?
So they're just resource availability, just giving people a lot of different ways to see that there's resources,
Okay.
right? So we have our town EAP, and
Okay.
we
So
give that out.
okay.
Yeah, we have our town EAP. We have private resources. We have teams that we can call after critical incidents. We have peer support groups, but it started with just a couple
Yeah,
magnets on the fridge. Yeah.
got it. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like one of those things. Tell me how you're doing today. Like your
No,
mood, like,
no, yeah, sorry.
like,
So I know
like that's,
I know what they look like.
I
So
was like that's interesting because a lot of times people aren't, a lot of times people do just say fine and they're not really fine, like you said.
yeah, and you can tell when somebody says that because they don't believe in what they say, right?
Mhm,
You can tell, oh, wait a minute, are you sure you're fine? Like, let's talk about this for a minute.
mhm,
Um, and often, if they feel in a trusting environment and they feel supported, they're gonna talk to you.
mhm. Yeah, and many of us have a fear of judgment. We're afraid the other person's going to judge us for if it's something even small, and that's why I'm going back to the comfort dog because dogs don't talk back. They're there to listen, and listening is a huge skill. If you're
Dogs
not,
don't ask questions.
yes, and
They're
dogs
just there
don't
to
ask
be a
questions
support.
and they're not going to tell anybody
Yeah,
what you said.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. And yeah, you
yeah.
gotta make sure that you have that trusting environment so
Mhm.
they know that you're not going to say anything. So um, and get them to the right resources. Sometimes saying, okay, I hear what you're saying. That is way above my my capabilities and my capacity. But here's a resource that we can reach out to, and these people specialize in this.
And just letting someone know that you're there for them. I know there's times, I don't need someone checking in on me constantly, but just to know that I can call someone.
Yeah, yeah, and you don't have to solve their problems. You just ask
Mhm.
those probing
Yep.
questions
Yep. It's the
and let
questions and
them.
just listening. Listening can go so far, even just like a hug or something, just letting them know, a pat on the back, like, we're here for you.
100%, absolutely, I agree with that. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be anything,
yeah, I
you don't
teach
have to be, yeah, exactly. Just the questions. So, what's a lesson that took you a long time to learn?
that we don't have to solve everybody's problems. And like I said, that was the first thing. It's still ongoing, because sometimes you want to jump in. You're like, oh, it's just easier. We're just going to solve this problem for you, but it's not easier in the long term. It's gonna cost you more. So, just having people solve their own issues and talking them through it and being supportive. I've really learned that through my pastor. I'm a person of faith,
Yeah.
so I kind of emulated. He's one of my mentors, so I've kind of emulated that a bit, where you just ask questions and you try to help people get to where they want to be or where they need to be.
And I think a good question is, what can I do for you?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
What
what
can
do
we do
you
to
need
help
from
you?
me? Yeah, what do you need from me? Or how can I be
What's
there
your
for you?
what's your ideal um, end goal for the situation? Like, what are you looking to get out of this? Well, I'm looking to do this. Okay, great. How do you get there? How do you do that? How do you get to this end goal?
Yeah.
Well, I'd
Because
probably do this and this. Okay, would you do anything else? Yeah, I'd probably do this too.
yeah,
And you're helping them solve their own problems. And
because what yeah.
that's probably been the most challenging.
Yeah. And because what you need is different than what I need and what everyone else needs is just different. So just hearing what they need.
Yeah, and just hearing answers to their own um, questions. Like, you're asking pro questions, empowering to your people too, whether it be here at work or at your own homes.
Yeah. And I mean, I love what you said about your son, helping him make his decision to get into the Navy.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have said, yeah, I think that you should do this or do that. But then it would have been me pushing on him, and he wouldn't have had taken total ownership of it. And he did take total ownership of it. He had taken the ASVAB, which is a military entrance exam, and he got a 79. And he had to get an 80 to get into a certain field that he wanted to get into. So then you have to wait a month in between those tests. So then he took the Navy aptitude test, and he had to get 56 of the whatever number of questions. I'm 57 of the whatever number of questions right. He only got 56. So
Of course.
studying, he's studying and studying, and then we took the ASVAB one more time. He graduated high school on a Thursday night, and Friday morning he was at the recruiter's office, and I'm going to drive him into Boston to retake the test. And he got into 89 because he took total ownership of it. So he got into the programming that he wanted to get into. So he should be really proud of himself for taking ownership of that and studying and learning the math and then really crushing the test.
Very proud. Like you said, of
Yeah,
the ownership. And And knowing your why. And,
Yeah,
when sometimes when you push someone, that can lead to resentment. So letting him make that decision on his own. It's really good.
yeah. And we do constant check-ins, probably too many. He's like, Dad, I'm good, I'm good. But just making sure, like, hey, how's everything going and this and that. And he's like, he's an 18-year-old kid. He's like, Dad, I'm fine. I'm good. So
I mean, I feel like as the adults, they need sometimes more checking in than the young kids.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Both my boys are really responsible kids, and really empathetic and kind and caring kids. And it's a really joy. It's a real joy to see them um, in the environment, coaching each other and, coaching their teammates. My youngest plays football, and to see the leadership that he puts on the field. And I attribute that a lot to my wife, not my position, but what my wife has done, raising our kids, has been really, it's been a team effort, but she really put them in a position to succeed.
It's amazing. Shout out
Yeah.
to your wife. What words of wisdom do you have for the younger generations?
A couple. If you're going into policing, I would say, like I tell everybody, keep it day one as much as you can. Keep, whatever that is. So for me, it was making sure my boots were shiny and that I I had, a nice pressed uniform. And that day one for me lasted a very long time. But just in general, I said earlier, be the person who show up for your family, show up for your coworkers, your community, and yourself. Like show up for yourself. Make sure that you have clear goals and then a way to achieve them. Talent matters, but more than talent is consistency. Small efforts over time really can create big results for you, for your family, for your teammates, and for your department. So that's kind of where I'd go with that.
Small things that lead to the bigger things.
And it's little things that are the big things,
Mhm.
you know.
And getting out of your comfort zone, trying new things to know what you
Yeah,
like and what you don't like.
yeah. There's my youngest when he was a baby, he was learning to climb up the steps, and we took a picture of him. Said it takes the courage to take the first step, and just trying those new things. And we that was always been like a little motto. We've always made these little memes out of him because he's always been extremely driven. Um, so just having that courage to try new things, and then you know don't be afraid to fail. You can't succeed at everything. You don't get experience from success. You get experience from your failures. Um, you don't get every job action. You don't get every promotion. You don't get every job that you put in for, but you learn from them all. And then I guess treat everybody with respect. Just, you know, it doesn't matter. One of my mentors who's no longer with us, I went to a Christmas party at his house. And one of the things he said, Nate, I don't care if you're the janitor or the senator, I'm going to treat you all the same. And everybody's going to be at this gathering. And he was a very successful person. But on his desk, I remember going into his office and saying, he had this contraption on his desk. It was like, some weird artwork. And I said, what is that? He said, that's my bachelor's degree in bankruptcy. I said, what do you mean? He said, I do well now, but I didn't always do well. And whenever I feel a little bit too big for my britches, I have my bachelor's in bankruptcy just to remind me and keep me humble. And I thought that was really cool and really important. Um, and it was a really nice Christmas party too when I had gone there. So
Well, thank you for sharing. It's been so great having you on the show. We
yeah,
appreciate
no,
your
thank you for having
wisdom.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.